Good morning, guys. Welcome to my Kotlin programming language lessons. Let me introduce myself. My name is Hasan Zeki Alp. I've been preparing programming language lectures for YouTube users. So far, I have prepared Kotlin's 5 lessons, and today we're going to see our next lessons. By the way, I'd like to give some idea about the tool that I've been using. I'm using JetBrains-IntelliJIDEA community version. Just before I updated this version, and let's start where we left at our last lesson. Okay, in this sixth lesson, we'll start with lesson 51. In this lesson, in this example, I'd like to show you usage of any type. Actually, any type is useful for defining any string or defining any variable without considering its type. If we say any, that's gonna be considered when it is used regarding to it is string or its integer or its floating. Here, this is an example for showing this. This is my main function, okay, and this is my defined function, and the name of defined function is print lt. So it's gonna accept an argument whose type will be any, and within this function I use a method which name print line, as you know, as you are familiar with, and it's gonna accept an argument, and in my main function I call that function print lt just by saying it, and I say I use one argument. Let's say this time we use a string so as to be printed out on the string on the screen, and in the next line I'd like to use this function. I'd like to call it, and this time just saying an integer 51 without saying any type, without mentioning any type. Okay, let's make it run and see. Okay, at the first line it said some string, and when we recall the method, when we recall the function once again with this method, it's gonna print out 51. Okay, I'd like to give another example for usage of any. Okay, I say take any. This is my function, and it's gonna accept any argument, and it's gonna print out that argument that I mentioned to be printed out. And within my main function, I call once at the first time some other string. This is gonna be printed out. Of course, it's gonna be accepted as a string, and I recall once again this function with these parameters. This is integer, as you know, and without mentioning that it is an integer, it's going to consider it as any, and it accepts it must be integer. Okay, let's make it run. Okay, some other thing, our string has been printed, and on the other line, the next line, 52 is printed out. I think it's clear the usage of any, and let's go our next example. Okay, this example is about a string. I define a function once again, its name printed, and it's gonna accept any, and here I make a comparison. I say that if argument is string, okay, if it is string, please print this. Length is and $, curly bracket, argument length. So just say that it's gonna calculate the length of that string whenever it is entered by the user, and it's gonna calculate the length, and the length as a value will be printed out within this string. Okay. And this is the out of this block, and out of the block only argument will be printed out. So the string that we've entered lastly at last will be printed out, and this is our main function. So I call my function at the first time here with this argument, some string. Okay, and if it is string, this will be performed. Okay, and if it's not string, okay, that means this branch, the argument itself will be printed out. So let's run and see the result. Okay, length is, okay, let me make it a little bit upper. Okay, length is, this is the extrapolation. Extrapolation. Okay, it's calculated as some string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, the length of this string must be 11 as calculated. Sorry. And this branch will be printed out. Some length is 11, and after that, out of this block, print line argument, arguments itself, the string will be printed out, and I recall my function once again here, this time with parameter integer 42. So 42 is accepted, and it's going to be made a comparison, but this time in logically this is not true, so it is not going to be printed out on the screen. Out of the block, just the value of argument will be printed out. I mean the itself of argument will be printed out, so it is 42 as we have seen it. Okay, let's go with another example. Okay, I'd like to give some examples about nullable types. Nullable types means it can be reset, and it can be used or not. Let me paraphrase by means of this example. I here define a string that's going to be high there, and just I mention here a interrogation mark, and by means of interrogation mark, it's considered that this is an nullable type. So I assign my string as null, and after that I'd like to print out this string. If we wouldn't place this interrogation mark, probably it is gonna give some error, but by mentioning that it's a nullable by means of this interrogation mark, it will be okay. It will be accept the next value, that I mean resetting value. Okay, null will be printed out on the screen. Okay, maybe you could say that how about high there? Is it cleaned or not? Just before that, in order not to miss it, in order not to lose it, you have to assign its value to another variable not to cause any inconveniences. Okay, here I give another example. Okay, this is the repetition array string. Okay, this time I define argument as a string. However, after that I say that might be changed, and of course after that line, that program line, I attempt to change it so as to null, and after that I print out its value of this str variable. Okay. Here, okay, this is another usage of a notable string. My string is here, hi there, and I assign it as a var type. So here I'd like to get its length. However, by using nullable, because in fact when I access this string, it might cause inconveniences. So I have to mention that it's nullable, and somehow I can ensure its structure, its data structure on the memory. And let me show the result. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8 characters that corresponds to its length will be printed out. Okay, just I'd like to show you this one. Okay, our string variable still exists, and it can be printed out by using print line method. Okay, let me show you next example. Okay, save call operator. Okay, by placing a dot ahead of interrogation mark, we can manipulate safely our variable. Just look this string structure. I here define a string to hi there as usual, and this time I mention this nullable safe call operator by this syntax, interrogation mark dot, and I'd like to perform this method. Okay. Okay, once again, just not to cause any inconveniences about this string, we can call this string by this structure, interrogation mark dot, like this. Okay, we have at last come to class structure. At the end of this lesson, I will give only a few examples, and after this sixth class, at the 7th class, I will give much more examples about class structure and objects. Just for this lesson, for this time, I will show you structure of class in Kotlin. Class name must start with uppercase, so must be defined within curly brackets. Okay, so just it is up to us whatever we write within this class structure. It's gonna be performed, and after curly bracket our class structure is completed. Okay, how to use this class template? We can define an variable so as to be an object of this class. So by calling the class structure, we must not forget these parentheses. Of course, the correspondence name, and let me assign this object as a variable. Okay. Object will be assigned class, and I can define another object, object2. So class name will be of course the same class name, and this is finished. Okay, let's go a factual example. Let's go with a factual example. Okay. In class structure, when we define a class structure, within the block, the things are called as properties. Let me show you the properties here. This is our main function. Okay, I here define a class, my user. Okay, my user class. Okay, and within the structure of class, within the brackets, I define properties. My first property is a string, will be name. Okay, and my second property will be another string. Okay, email, and my next variable will be another string. Okay, learning with, this is my name. It is going to be the third variable. And how to implement this class structure? Just we have to create an object of our class template. I say my user, and we do not forget parentheses and semicolon, of course. And I here use my object with this property, and this property will be John, and I'd like to use this method this time, my object dot learning with. So surprisingly, when we run this, learning my object dot learning with Hasan Zeki Alp will be called even if we defined this variable, this utility as John. Okay, let's go with another example here. Okay, I'd like to show you member functions. Within a class, we can define member functions, member elements that can be a function. Okay, I create here user, and within the user class, within this block, I define a member function which name print by. Okay, this is going to be printed out. This is the end of lesson, of course, actually lesson 6. Okay, and at the end of this block, I create one object of this user class. Okay, and by means of this object, I'd like to call one method, member function. I call it member function, print by. When I call this with this parenthesis, this method will be called. So let me show you. Okay, this is the end of lesson 6. Yes, guys, this was the end of lesson 6. In our next lesson, we restart with class structure once again, and I'll give you much more examples regarding classes, creating objects, creating member functions, and methods relevant to them. Thanks for watching me. Keep in peace up to next lesson. Thanks for your time once again. Bye bye.